I lead Ashoka's work in East Africa. For those of you who may not know about Ashoka, we are the organization that pioneered the field of social entrepreneurship. And so what we do in East Africa is to support social entrepreneurs to scale their innovation. But now we are even working on a bigger mission, where we believe not everyone is going to be a social entrepreneur, but everyone must master skills that will enable them to be solution finder, right? So that then we can outmatch the challenges that we are seeing across the world with solutions. So there's going to be a bit of a shift in this session. We're supposed to start with a showcasing. Mr. Mbogo was to showcase, tell us about the work that he's doing with hand in hand in relation to the topic of social business. But because we need technical support here, we're just going to get into the panel, and then at the end of it, we will have Mr. Mbogo present. So I'd like to ask my panelists to come forward. We have Professor Ujali. I'll just say Prof. Ibrahim right there, please. Please, a round of applause for Prof. as he comes here. Welcome. Glad to see you. And I've discussed with the panelists, and they've said they're very, very, very looking forward to this session. Very energetic, very insightful. And they will want to receive the same energy back. So if you give them high energy, you'll get high energy. So Prof, please have a seat. Thank you. Then next we have Basel. Basel, please, round of applause for Basel. They have both made long travels to be here. We really, really appreciate it. And so we want to make sure that you get maximum value both ways, right? We have, I'm going to butcher it again, Neda. Neda. So please, round of applause for Neda. Okay. Then, last but not least, one and only Eva. Please put your hands together for Eva. All right, good. Most of the time, the first thing that we point out in panel conversation is, was it gender balance? And here, it's very much gender balance, right? And also, it has a very unique, composition. We have academia, insight from academia. We have insight from ecosystem. We have insight from movement builders. So it's really going to be an interesting conversation. And I want to invite you to really engage. So please, put your hands together as my panelists have a seat. Great. Good. Before we start, and I'm not going to take time trying to frame this session. I think it's pretty obvious, social business, and then we'll get into it. But the first thing I want to ask, what question do you have for the panelists? Even before they start, as you think about social business, what is the one wonder you have? Or what is the one curious thing that is running through your mind? Or just one how about that is running through your mind? Let's make this engaging. Who wants to start? Yes.
My name is Collins. How about building a sustainable...
Collins, just a minute. Let me ask the media team, would it be helpful if people stand, or it's okay?
It's okay.
It's okay. All right, Collins, go ahead.
Yeah, how about building a sustainable social business enterprise?
How do you go about building a sustainable social enterprise? Brilliant question. Anyone else? Anyone else? Now also we have to do a gender balance in this opening question. So the males are being represented. So let's get another one from the female. Yes, I can see you. have something in mind? Anyone else? Okay, the questions will come. So let's just get started. And I'm going to have the panelists to introduce themselves, because they will do justice to who they are and what really makes them passionate about what they're doing right now in terms of the role they play. And I'll start right here with Nadal.
I knew it just based on where I'm seated. Anyway, hi everyone.
You can hold this as it
Ah,
yeah.
okay. Can you hear me? Okay, fantastic. Hi everyone, how's everyone feeling? All right, as you ease into the afternoon, the food was great, so hopefully everyone's energized. So my name is Nada, like ta-da, and I am social enterprise is my life work. I am fiercely passionate about social enterprise and have been in the sector now for about 15 years. I began as a researcher, and then from there was very adamant, keen to become a practitioner, and that's where I find myself now. I run a consultancy doing just that, advising social entrepreneurs, aspiring social entrepreneurs, existing ones as well as traditional entrepreneurs looking to make the shift, because we know that social business models are viable, right? We know they're sustainable, and we'll get to that question. And so I think it's important for those who perhaps are not familiar with the model, recognize that this is the one that is worth charging towards, so to speak. So that's more or less my background. My educational background reflects that. I have a background in commerce. My MBA specializes in social entrepreneurship and social enterprise. So yeah, this is me. This is I.
Great.
Thanks.
Raise hands. So, okay, now something. Return the energy. Said Tada. That's really great. I mean, she speaks, breathes, walks. Everything social entrepreneurship. Brilliant. Yes.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me for this wonderful event. So I am not Basil, by the way. I'm just replacing Basil, my
that's what I was
colleague.
suspecting.
Yeah. So he didn't get the chance to be here since the visa issue and so on. So my name is Ibrahim Dawhash. I am the head of international department at Arwika Company, which is a Saudi Arabia-based company. It's an international socio-economic development firm launched in 10 years ago, but we started the new journey after launching the vision of Saudi Arabia 2030 is for development inside Saudi and beyond, now going beyond Saudi Arabia in MENA region and also Africa. So when you talk to my background, so my background is a little bit confusing. My background is finance. I worked as a banker in JP Morgan, but I achieved my career a few years ago to social development, mainly working especially in social finance. For me as well, I am a fellow researcher at UNTM University Technology Malaysia in a sort of economic development and social finance. So nice to meet you all of you today, and we hope to learn from each other. Thank you so much.
Great. I think for those of us who've been on this side, when we hear someone who is close, we have to celebrate. So we are converting people. Yes. Dr. Joyce, I know you agree with me. It's a big deal. Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Ujjwal Ibrahim. This is my first time in East Africa. And, thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very happy that I could join the conference. I'm a professor of business in Canada at a university called University Canada West. It's in Vancouver, Canada. So I come all the way from Vancouver. So I came here day before yesterday in the evening. So my background is kind of mixed, academic particularly. I have a degree in microbiology, then marketing, then my PhD is in entrepreneurship, and I also have a degree in professional accounting. I'm not a CPA, but I do have a background in accounting. I do not teach accounting either. I just learned it. That's it. I have many years of experience working in the area of social business and microfinance, microcredit. And I try to bridge between academia and industry. I believe from my, let's say, 15 years of faculty experience and also my experience as a practitioner, I feel that there's a huge gap. So when we are talking about social entrepreneurship, one of the things, I'm sure it'll pop up in this panel as well, is building that ecosystem, because it's not about one entity, it's about kind of a harmony. We have to create that ecosystem. And one of the challenges that I found out for a long, long time is that gap between academia and industry. So through my research, I try to see how we can bridge that gap. As a researcher, I take a lot of interest in refugee resettlement and economic development, social innovation, social business, microfinance. In general, this is my area. So I'm looking forward to this panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Yes,
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eva Kigo. I am the Senior Director of Technical Assistance at Village Enterprise. Village Enterprise has a poverty graduation model, so our purpose and our mission is to eradicate poverty in Africa, and we prioritize rural Africa in our work. And my job specifically as a technical assistant senior director is really focused on supporting partners, particularly NGOs and governments, to deliver programming that is going to drive that change that we want to see in Africa. My background is also quite interesting. I've toggled between private sector and development, a bit of consulting in the financial services industry for quite a while. So I got to see multiple angles of what social enterprise could be. I have a background in finance, and my second degree is in economics, development economics. And I get to see the different angles. And the thing that I really like about social entrepreneurship and social enterprises is that it's an opportunity to create shared value between different sectors, different organizations, and really drive change for communities. What we tend to see, as my colleagues have said, is we need to have locally driven solutions at the systematic level, because if we work in silos, we will end up being too fragmented to see real impact at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Just to pick from there, and Neda, I'll just start with you.
Goodness.
I'll start with you. When Eva's just talked about, I mentioned the need for localization and thinking system level change. What are some of the trends that you're seeing from where you're seated that have a bearing on how social business or social entrepreneurship movement or social and solidarity economy movement will take shape in the next couple of years?
Goodness. So there are a number of trends. I want to actually start by saying that I didn't mention that I am Sudanese, so I want to say that it's lovely to be here. But anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's get, we can keep moving. But anyway, so yeah, and Sudanese Canadian. So anyway, it's just fine, just making the ties. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. So so there are a number of trends, but I want to make sure that it's sort of rooted in the subject for today. So we're looking at models. And what I've seen is that, so scalability is a thing that I think we've all heard time and again. If you're not scalable, are you viable? And in fact, there have been some wonderful books that there's actually one in particular that was authored by Walsk and a couple of other authors, escaping me, forgive me. This was 2021, so please look it up. I can get you the name afterwards. But the point is, what they were exploring is, if you're not building a scalable social enterprise, are you able to attract funding? And then longer term, are you able to, again, sustain the organization? And what they discovered was, well, you need to be, again, scalable, but not necessarily a large organization. And so what that means, and what I would say, is that I'm seeing two ends of the spectrum. One, these organizations that are looking to scale up, out, and deep, and those are three types of scaling. And then also organizations that are micro-social enterprises. And they exist in order to support the livelihood of the founders and those in their immediate sort of circle, and that's sufficient. And so I've seen those two trends, social enterprises and scalable, larger organizations. I've seen really interesting rural social entrepreneurship and looking at models to sustain those type of organizations, because I think oftentimes research and focus tends to be on metropolitan areas. We know cosmopolitan areas as well, like the Nairobis of the world. But of course, we recognize that there are communities, wonderful, incredible, brilliant farmers out there that exist, for instance, looking at creating ecosystems there. So that's another thing as well. And then, so for me, because I'm very passionate about work integration social enterprises, so looking at supporting those with employment barriers, there's a lot of really interesting models within that space. So as an example, cross-subsidy models, which I think are really interesting, again, in particular to work integration social enterprises. So refugees, working with people who've been formerly incarcerated, people with disabilities, et cetera. So yeah, these are the kind of trends I've been seeing, but frankly, we could be here until midnight, so I'll spare you. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just pass it to Jal.
Sure.
Neda said something that, it's interesting. We say, yes, start a social enterprise and, focus direct service. But I don't know, what do you have to say? You're validating those who are starting social enterprises, but it's just for the livelihood. Is this something that also you're seeing from research.
Yeah, so I'll talk about research and also my experience as a practitioner. So I've been working with the creator of Yunus Social Business for many years now. And I learned about the whole social business thing, the way he interpreted directly from him. And also I learned about microfinance for the first at a young age from the creator of microcredit and Grameen Bank, the first microfinance institution from Professor Yunus. So when we talk about the social innovation and social business, one thing that I really learned from my experience and also the way Professor Yunus talked about it, sustainability, long-term sustainability. First of all, it's a business. So I think that was one of the questions as well, that how you ensure sustainability. The beauty is it's a business, first of all. Now the goal is different. Now you kind of see it out of the box, because within the box is profit maximization. Textbook talks about it. We talk about it. That's the only way we talk about. Now the question is, if we are talking about social business, models of social business, one thing we need to emphasize is long-term sustainability, how we can make sure it's financially and economically sustainable. So you have to treat it like a business. It is a business, actually. But your goals are different. Your goals are cost-driven. And you set everything else keeping that in mind. That if you think about, let's say, 4 Ps of marketing: product, price, promotion, distribution, you have to keep that in mind, who your actual target audience is. And so you have to make it affordable for them. If you want to, charge it to like a regular price and make a lot of money, then it defeats the purpose. So you have to keep the core goal in mind. So that's the sustainability part. And we were talking about the trend, we see that. Not exactly as a Yunus social business model, not all the time, but we see that businesses are heading toward that direction. Benefit Corporation, for example, B Corp. There's a non-profit institution called B Lab. They certify these businesses, and they have to work towards sustainability principles. They call it profit with purpose. So one way is Yunus social business model. Another way could be B Corp. And even typical corporate social responsibility is also taking a different mileage nowadays. They're probably trying to be more sustainable, a little less donation-oriented, and more sustainable. So if you ask me that what's the catalyst or what's the recipe, the core recipe, I would say design something that would be sustainable and viable from a business point of view. Because our panel is called social business. Because we can address social issues in many different ways. But as soon as you call it a business, it has to be business. That was my point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So viable, scalable,
Sustainable.
So whatever model we're looking at, it has to have those components. And so the one thing that we're seeing there is this move towards, sustainability kind of thinking, even for the traditional businesses where the goal is profit,
Yeah.
and then it is just profit. But then they're beginning to think, how do we? Is there a role there now for social enterprises that already exist? How, if you're thinking about the ecosystem, how do we bring on board these corporations, these businesses that are now kind of paying attention? Because I know your work is more on ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just I want to emphasize, and also what my colleagues said, social enterprises, it's not like NGO, it's not like philanthropy foundation, it's like a company, can see it. It's a business, as mentioned, Doctor. So the recipe here is like to have a business, and the other hand, to have impact. So this is the most important now, the imbalance between business and to make profit. This is very important to make investment, as an impact investment or social investment and so on. And also we need to have impact. So to have impact is to have strict and clear measurement, impact framework. It's different from coming from the different sectors, it's different framework that we showed. So this is the point, I think I can say, of social enterprises missing in their ecosystem or in their business model. This is very important for the sustainability and also for how to reach your beneficiaries. When you have like strict and you have a clear system of impact, so we will do it in the proper way. Back to your question, actually, yeah, for the business model to support and also to make sure the sustainability of social enterprises is to create the ecosystem. The ecosystem, which we means, and we have this model like we did it in 7 countries, by the way, is to get all the sectors involved in creating the ecosystem of social enterprises, which is like you need like to get like public sector, we need to get like private sector and even non-profit sector. So the non-profit sector can help the social enterprises and social entrepreneurship ecosystem by addressing and highlight social issues. The private sector can get like how to run your business with the private sector view, so to make sure that's the profitability in the proper way. And the public sector is for like advocacy and also for policy and legitimation. So this is, I think, the issue that many ecosystem or many countries like facing now, how to bring all these players working together in one way. So when you ask me about our experience, for example, what we have done in Saudi Arabia and the many countries, we face this issue until today. There is no proper, for example, legal framework for social enterprises in many countries. I think Kenya has something maybe for non-profit or for social enterprises. But countries like Saudi Arabia and countries like even Egypt and Pakistan and even Kazakhstan who are working, there is no legal framework to work. So this is make our work very difficult. But the trick here is to show yourself. Go and make it happen through the way of businesses. So for us, when we started first initiative in 2019, Saudi Arabia, is something for housing, social housing. So we reached out the Ministry of Housing and Development. The first question they said, "Who are you?" Social enterprises. So like, we cannot work with you. Who are you first? But when we started our program through the working as an ecosystem with the private sector and non-profit, and we show yourself, now we have more than 5,000 beneficiaries, and we created like cities and so on. So now the Ministry of Housing coming to us, guys, come, we have something to do together. So I think this is the trick. I think we need to start our work. Another ecosystem also for social enterprises is to think with the 2 umbrellas we mentioned, a business and also for economic empowerment. Yes, we have like social issues. We have this, I can say, dilemma that we are targeting it, but we need like to address it also through empowerment, for women empowerment, for youth empowerment, for job creation, and so on, what we can do as intervention. So here to create like the sustainability of our interventions in the ground. So to make our report, our impact report, impactful later on. So how we can do it. Another thing is for innovation. Social innovation is very important for enterprises. You know that we are addressing an issue, a gap or a social issue, but we need like to address it with an innovative way. So to have like this kind of innovation hubs and also this collective work, so can like reach the result with a proper way. So yeah, to conclude, this is what we are seeing as an ecosystem. So for entities, for like for the sectors, public, private, non-profit, and also we have it like economic empowerment, we have it innovation, and to reach the recipe of social enterprises.
Great. So, we started viable, scalable, sustainable, the ecosystem, but you have to show up. You have to show the impact.
Yes.
You have to build a pulling factor for other players to join. So Eva, when you think about the work that you're doing and also this concept now, are you seeing, is there a threat with this, as we've said the concept, you're saying even corporates running CSR, or CSV, all that is social business. Do you sense there's a threat in watering down what social business really is, or from the work you're doing, all this comes together one way or the other?
Yes and no. It depends on how it's approached. If there is a systematic lens, it will not be watered down, right? We have to think about, even in our work as an NGO, when we are designing programs and we are adapting our approach for a particular context, particularly a new context, we need to think about who are the other players in the area, right? What policies are there? Is there an enabling environment for this business that we are looking at? And how do we influence that enabling environment? Particularly when we're working with partners and introducing this approach to them for them to start delivering. Because the reason we work with local partners is that they have a depth of knowledge of the problem that they're facing, right? And so it's really important for us to bring them into the conversation and co-design a solution with them. But they're not the only player in the system, as we've discussed here right now. If we want a viable, sustainable solution, we need to think about different angles of the problem and come at it at different angles. Our solution will not be the only solution out there. Who else can we bring in to address part of the problem that will be an enabling infrastructure to drive the change we are looking to see? If that is the approach we take, then there won't be a watered down. The threat we are seeing, however, is fragmentation and silos and working individually towards the same problem. And what we find is there's fatigue with beneficiaries as well, because sometimes we end up targeting the same beneficiaries. So we are in the household, we are in the community, we have this solution, and then organization B has a similar solution. What's the difference? There's confusion we create, right, in the communities. Because some of the communities we work in, and a lot of social enterprises we've seen initially started off in cities. A few years ago, that was where a lot of the concentration of the impact and the work was, when we are looking at depth and what we are prioritizing. Village Enterprise has always focused in the rural areas, and we're starting to see a trend and a movement to address the solution, the problems in the rural sector, in the rural areas geographically. The problems, it might still be poverty in Nairobi, it's still poverty there, but the root cause of poverty is different. The ecosystem actors, the players, the market is different. So the solution we implement in Nairobi might not work in the middle of Kakamega or Lodwar, for instance, using Kenya as a context, right? And those are some of the things we need to consider. And even Kakamega and Lodwar are urban centers, right? So when we go further inward, the problem is more acute, and we need to look at it differently. If we have the ecosystem approach that we're talking about, we will drive viable, sustainable solutions. If we work in silos, we'll be running like a hamster in a wheel, repeating the same problem.
Brilliant. I mean, so from what you're saying, Eva, it's sort of a moment of, telling the other three, wait a minute. Whether it's whatever business model, how will it survive in the rural area? What ecosystem will you build? How will you attract all these corporates that are in the big urban areas? How will you make sense of the research from the academia? So in other words, business models are not relevant. The most relevant thing is how do we rally everyone to think about the challenges, the issues that we are solving at a system level. Then you break down all the silos, the urban, rural, divide, academia, practitioners divide, sectoral divide. So business model is not really an issue. But let me just bring it back to participants. What is the burning thing that you're feeling? One thing that you want to ask at this point? Do you feel the business models are relevant or they're not relevant?
Can I actually address something?
Yes.
If I may? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so, let's just tackle the elephant in the room, which is that the inherent hybridity of social enterprise, meaning that dual social and economic mission, makes it very difficult to sustain, more than any traditional nonprofit or traditional business, right? So we know that. And so respectfully, I would say absolutely the business model does matter, but what matters most is that ecosystem, the community. You need wraparound support. It's just no organization or person can exist unto themselves on their own without any support that, it takes community, whatever, a village to raise a child as an example, so respectfully. But what I would say is that, well, a few things. When it comes to structuring, first of all, an organization, I think that's baseline, just very important, that you got your legal structure down pat. And we did talk about sort of hybrid models that are coming up that we know that have been researched, but also legislation that's been passed around the world to reflect that. And unfortunately, you mentioned some countries that unfortunately are lacking that at this time, but there's several places around the world, the UK, Canada included, US, there's a lot going on, Argentina, Switzerland, Germany, I can keep going. So you can look into these kind of models in there, and so there's, this exists from legally speaking, because they recognize that there's a need that a very unique need that social enterprises have, because again, going back, there's that dual social and economic mission, right? But as far as business models, we know that there's three forms. We know that there's sustainable business models, we have traditional business models, and we have digital business models. And all three apply to social enterprises. So yes, they do matter because you have all kinds that you can explore. Within sustainable business models themselves, we have at least 9 that exist. And so we know, again, why does this even matter? Because once you're creating your organization, that the sort of the heartbeat, or the engine rather, is how you're going to create value for the community and for the organization itself. How do you generate revenue? That's a baseline. That's what a business model answers. And so how you generate that revenue, one business model might help an organization thrive, whereas another can serve, can unfortunately lead to its demise, right? So we want to make sure that we're very intentional about that. So yeah, there are many examples of that. I don't want to take up too much space, but I can address that afterwards. But yeah, respectfully, I would say it absolutely does matter. But of course, that inherent hybridity, you always go back to that. The final thing is, my colleagues here have mentioned the importance of profitability. Of course, we know that. You want to sustain an organization, you need to be profitable. That means your revenue always has to exceed your expenses if you want to keep it going. But beyond that, we also know that your mission can be diluted, right? That mission creep is a fundamental challenge. So as much as it's important to focus on making money, of course, on being profitable, please don't lose sight of your social mission, right? It's a tough balancing act, right? Juggling those two, it's tough, but always try to keep your eye on both if you can, and recognize that what you stand for, your identity as an organization, that matters significantly, and and it speaks to what you do and who you are, and how you serve your community. So yeah.
Sorry, just to add something. I think the business model is not like a target in itself. It's just like tools to reach our result. Just to mention here, for any social enterprises, it has the theory of change to apply. So what is the need that you want to solve? What is the issue that I want to address? So when you have like a clear theory of change for any social enterprises or any other organization to solve like a community issue or social issue through different business model, if you want like profitability, or if you want like to go NGO or non-profit. So, but the baseline is theory of change. Theory of change, the baseline of it is the beneficiaries. What is your need? First thing is the need assessment. So of course, it's one of the mistakes that many business social entrepreneurs did, is they don't do proper need assessment. So here, if you want to do need assessment in rural area, so we directly we work in rural area. If we do it like for other issues, so we do it in urban area. So here, it's not about the geographical or any urban or suburban. It's coming from the need assessment itself and coming from the theory of change. So what we want to do as a social enterprise, as I mentioned, profitability is not like everything. You can say 50%. But what is the 50%? The other 50% is impact. Impact to the impact is you need like a process. You need like to get issue. What is the real? So until that, when you find and you fill up all these components, so here it comes to business. What is the proper business model? So the business model is the end of a long journey. You cannot skip it. Go directly for the business model.
Yeah. Now, just to switch, because I'm hearing like, I mean, it's complex. It's a really complex one. And if you were to imagine, I mean, we're talking about the youth population, young people as a dividend. But there's just a way we can make that a reality. If we support them, if they can tap into this, if this is the next big thing, actually, it's a movement that is already, crystallizing. from an ecosystem perspective, I met like a group of young social entrepreneurs from Saudi just recently, and a couple of months ago. Then I realized it's just the same issues or concerns. Right?
Yeah.
How do we navigate and get recognized into this ecosystem? So it's double jeopardy for young people, and I want to switch it down to young people. What would be your practical advice for young people to really get that notice, to have the pull factor, in addition to all the bricks and mortar, the bolts and nuts of this is how a social entrepreneur should look like? What would be that attraction that young people should build? And then it'll be the same also now, just switching to young people, Prof. What is research showing you around opportunities for young people and Eva as well? But we'll start here.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Then I will come.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, for me, as a young people, I can say myself, as I started this journey like 5 years ago, I think when I was doing my PhD and so on. So personally, a lot of my friends, they studied with me, so I was very capitalist man. I don't believe in social, and because I'm from Algeria, by the way, so we have like a bad experience with capitalist and social things from dependence, historically. That's why I have this dilemma. I have these things. I hate something social but I achieved. Why? Because I saw that's, I can say, our society, this is our responsibility to our society. We need to do something because all of us have our issues in our societies. And we got, I can say, good education, and we get coming from society. So we need to give some return. So this is like a philosophy. Many of young people, they don't believe it, but there is still, I think you can say here in this room, I think the majority of us believe to give something back to the society. So I think this is the first motivation for us. The second thing for us now, as a young, always when we work with young, because as a hub and so on, is to, of course, young looking to also to do profit, to create their job, to create the things. Social enterprises fit both and address to both. It's like doing business and also doing impact as well, and so on, and economic and so. When it comes now to this movement, even in Ashoka in Egypt, I think we had like mini conversation in that and so on. Now, I think even now the business models or the theory of economic are changed. I think now, I can say now social enterprises and social economic is the third theory. After capitalism and also socialism. So this kind of things, this dynamic work, and also this motivation, personal motivation, and also the support. This is what we need to do, is to attract youth, is we need to support. Support coming from now the ecosystem, from all the stakeholders. Coming from university, I have here professors coming they're in the student path, and also we need from government, and also we need some from private sector and non-profit sector. So I think for us, we did this 5 years. We are showing now in the result. Go to any, I think, the other countries, or maybe I have many, I think, 100 of successful story. From youth, they shift their businesses and they come to this way of work. Why? Because there is responsibility, of course, and also the support from the other sectors. That's why we need to engage as a group work, as a stakeholders coming from different parts.
Great. I like that. I'll get Prof, because I will come back this way. So, Prof, and so that's very powerful. Like even for young people, the attractiveness will come from developing that as a strong philosophy of wanting to do good, wanting to do something for the common good. When you said it, I'm like, boom, this is what it should be. I want to see you showing up, not thinking just profit, but because I want to give back, I want to do something, right? Perfect.
And another thing is youth population constitutes some 20% of the world population right now. And if you think about many developing economies, emerging economies, that percentage is way higher. If you go to particular nations, the majority population is the youth already. So they're very powerful. already. They're very powerful and they are very empowered, particularly with the technology. Just think about it, the type of technology, the age group that we are particularly talking about, they're already highly empowered. They are very high percentage in number and highly empowered. And empirical research actually indicates that they want change. They are not a big fan of the stereotypical business situation. That's what the research says. My practical experience also says the same. I literally counted. I already taught more than 2,500 students in Vancouver. They're my direct students. So this is a common thing in the class. They want change. They want change. They're not very big fan of the way things are going. So that's the thing. Now, how can we support them? That's the thing. So we have to create, we've been talking about the ecosystem. It has to start from the educational institution. In many parts of the world, the university education, I teach in the MBA program. MBA programs are employment driven, basically. You get a certificate, you go target for the big job. It really doesn't talk much about entrepreneurship. So when I learned about this particular university, this was really interesting for me. It has a entrepreneurship focus at every level. Today I was talking with some students here, just a chit chat, and they were also convincing me that they are very entrepreneurially driven and they want to start their own enterprise. That's not a very common scenario in many parts of the world, by the way, in the university level. So this is something we need to, how we can do it, And then universities need to incorporate sustainability education, sustainable principle. Inclusion, you have to put it in the coursework. Otherwise, it's very difficult to address. It has to be part of the curriculum, literally. And then, since we are building entrepreneurs, finance. Yeah. Finance has to be available for all. That's a big challenge, particularly in North America. A new graduate wants to become an entrepreneur. Where does the finance come from? That's a big question. And it's not easy. But particularly not easy from the conventional financial institution. Other ones, perhaps easy. There are grants, but you can imagine how many people are competing for the same grant, right? Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. So you have to create this like step by step finance and that inclusion and making sure that you provide that philosophy of entrepreneurship parallelly. I mean, you don't have to abandon employment, but there is another route. Yeah, you have parallelly. You have to create. Yeah. That is somehow missing.
Right. I like that because then you see it's the individual philosophy build that, and there has to be experiences that then enables that to build, and that means also learning from what is happening, showcasing some of these convenings showing up, and then also there has to be intentionality in terms of learning institutions, especially universities, building that, and not just having it as it's just part of our belief. It has to be something that is alive.
True.
So Eva, for you, what do you see? I mean, especially because then, like I said, I mean, it's double jeopardy. I'm thinking young people who are hearing about social business model, they're hearing about ecosystems, but they're in the village. I mean, what is your take on this? How do we bring them?
There are two things I'm going to say. There's even the young people in the village are still creative, still tech savvy. They're still interested in, the newest gadget, what's happening. They want to keep up with the times. And there's this thirst for knowledge and for what's happening in the world. And they are just as, what would I say? They want to move against the grain. They want to go against status quo because they have seen the problems and they said this will not happen with my generation, which is amazing to see. And that vigor and eagerness to drive change for themselves and for their community is something that we need to really encourage and support. So the things I'm going to say is for those of us who are no longer youth and already in our established segments of the economy, whether it's government, whether it's, NGO, whether it's consulting, whatever it is. There was a saying when I was back in school that we are not here to teach, and we're not here to give fish to a fisherman. We're here to teach them how to fish. We need to move away from teaching how to fish. That's not enough. We need to show the youth how to get to the lake. We need to show them how to get the license to be able to access that lake. We need to give them the financing, because they could know the skill, they could have the skill, but if the enabling environment is not there, it's not going to happen. So for us who are in where we are, we need to think about what the youth need and how we can support them to get to the point where they are driving the change for their generation. And the other thing I want to say for the youth, don't ignore previous generations. There's indigenous knowledge that they have that could be further enhanced with the technology, with the change that you want to see, with the information that you're seeing. Information is so easy to access. Oh gosh, I wish I had that information at that age. It's so easy to access right now. And if you find out, like for agriculture, for example, this particular indigenous green is working very well in northern Kenya, but people don't eat greens there because for them, they're so used to this type of food, right? If we first start listening to the older generations and hearing what did they use, what worked, what didn't work, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Innovation is also about applying the right information in the right space.
Great. Oh, great. So it's don't just teach them how to fish, show them where the lake is. At Ashoka we say, don't give them fish, don't teach them how to fish, teach them how to revolutionize, transform the fishing industry. But nada, so we've had all this. I mean, we started the business model and then, the ecosystem and how this can support, and we're focusing now on young people. And we're seeing they have the tech innovations with them, which can kind of accelerate things. What do you think is missing in all this? Because I believe these are conversations that have been had for quite some time now. And by the way, if young people, are saying, this thing of intergenerational conversation and collaboration is just you people not wanting to miss out. So you better stay. Yes, Nada.
I love it. Well, first of all, there's some incredible, just brilliant points that have already been made, and I echo everything that's been said. We also need to recognize that they're digital natives. I deeply admire the Gen Zers, the youngest adults that we have, which are Gen Zers, but also recognize that there is digital literacy, inequity that exists around the world in terms of access to technology that's also inequitable around the world. So we need to recognize the inequity that exists, period. And hopefully, and can still strive for a world where everyone does have access to technology, which we recognize as fundamental these days, and what every person deserves, especially young people, because that gets them ahead. But there's a number of things, I think, when we talk about young people, recognize as anyone who here, if you can just raise your hand, if you enter the workforce post the financial crisis of 08, shortly thereafter, after 2008. Anyone? No one. No one. Yeah, after. Who entered shortly thereafter, not meaning within the 2 to 5 years after the financial crisis. All right, well, no, I'm sorry, I'm puzzled and shocked. But okay, let's pretend hypothetically folks did, because I know quite a few people that did. Yeah, and you can relate. Thank you, Vincent. All right, so the hands up over here. Okay, all right. So and you can think of all the challenges that came with that. So those micro-environmental factors are things I think also we need not to lose sight of, because young people are confronting that as we speak. Look what the world is. The world feels like it's quite literally on fire, and so they're confronting the geopolitical factors. They're recognizing all the things that have to do with the economic factor, which is it seems like a looming recession in a lot of parts of the world at this point. And so inherently baseline, they're confronting that. So that's one thing. But we know, as again the research shows, as the professor mentioned, is that young people want to believe in what they're doing more than any other generation, especially Gen Zers, millennials as well. But they want to believe in what they're doing, and to your point, Eva, they dance to the rhythm of their own drum. I think they're, forgive my language, they're badasses. This generation is has resolve and fortitude that unlike anything at least I've ever seen. And so they have the ingredients, but they're confronting these macro environmental factors. But then comes the support system. So in terms of, to your point about what's missing, a lot of things. Well, first of all, baseline education that, for instance, social enterprise exists, that this world welcomes them. But again, the fact that they're driven and they want to believe in what they're doing already sets them up. We just want to let them know that this exists. So I think educationally speaking, both formal and informal education, we need to remind them that this is a pathway that exists, first of all. That terminology, like even if you were to Google right now, social business model, you're going to see, as we speak, if you Googled it, it's going to say something along the lines of networking, social networking sites. That's what it's going to allude to. Nothing to do with social business as we know it. Yeah. So we need to heighten awareness. We need to make sure that in formal education that these pathways exist. The MBA program that I did is only one of a few in the world, and that, to me, that's academia is far behind, I think, where we need to be in order to encourage this world to thrive. And yeah, I think young people need to recognize, again, awareness, need to recognize that it's a viable pathway, need to have role models that exist for them, which means we need to have louder voices here in the world. But of course, financing. I mean, without that, they can't, they can't build the future as we, envisage it. And so that means that there really needs to be, I would say, a strong funding landscape and governments that support and believe in this model, and not in a fickle way, not where, one political party says yes and the other says no. We need consistent funding. And we need them to recognize that they can also explore creative ways, because they're using their ingenuity to be able to sustain this kind of business model, this kind of way of doing business. So yeah, all of those things. As you can see, none of those things exist sort of in a vacuum. They really exist in tandem, and it's important that all of those things are supported simultaneously. It's particularly for young people. But yeah, the good thing is they have the goods. Internally, they have it. So we just need to pave the way for them. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Great. It has been whispered to me that too, we're out of time. Because I'm seeing Brother Jonas here. I don't know if you have discretion for us, but we're out of time. And unfortunately, we had two presenters, Mr. Mugo and Bugwa, who were to present. But we started late, so sort of I don't know if there can be slot for them at some point tomorrow. Or I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So that then we can conclude if you're going back. Fantastic. So they say you never learn anything until you learn it at the level of principle. So we were to discuss business model, and we've gone into that varieties of them. But then the most important thing is the principle behind those models. If it's not viable, if it's not sustainable, and if it's not scalable, then give it a second look. We've also had, you can have the model, but then if the ecosystem is fragmented, is siloed, you're not going to move far. So use that, what you have, use the venture that you're running, and create attraction to it. And the only way to create attraction is staying the course of the mission. Make sure that it's delivering on the impact side as well, and it's of course sustainable. And then we switch it a little bit because we're talking about a generation of young people. How do we bring young people into this conversation? And we are seeing again, the trends are showing. It's corporates wanting to do this. Who's gonna do it with them? It's young people. It's the desire, young people have what it takes to do this. It's the tech innovation that we are seeing that is powering the next generation innovation. And so what do we need to do? We need to support young people to get into this space by not just holding the door for them to come in, but completely breaking down the walls and letting them in. I like what we kind of just finished up around finance, and there's something that Mohamed Yunus says, when he was thinking about Grameen Bank, and he asked this, traditional banking institution, you guys don't make sense. Why are you giving money to people who already have money? Right. You should be giving money to those who don't have. So I think it's high time for us to start challenging, the banking institutions, the funders. You cannot giving all the money to urban cities and young people in urban cities who probably have access to these opportunities. Why not look at other areas as well? And also, why not be very intentional in supporting young people? So ladies and gentlemen, I was going to ask us for a parting shot, but I think we've run out of time. Let's close it there. And then we have time to interact with you as the 2 days go by. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity. Find them if you have questions, please find them and ask them questions. There must be burning questions here.
Vincent, should we take a picture?
Yeah.
And this, I don't know where to put this.
It's still being recorded.
Really?
It's clipped, yeah?
Yeah, it's
All
clear.
right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.